Okay, today, this video is intended to be used as a refresher for how to upload data into an existing data source. Water Reporter has multiple options for how to upload data into an existing data source. So you can collect data from your mobile device, but for uploading data, and because you're an account owner, in this video, we're going to stick with the options on the web. Let's get started at the very beginning. So first, you need to log into your Water Reporter Administrator account. And from your dashboard page, you're going to want to navigate to your group and click Manage Account, which is what we're going to do here. We're going to click into this demonstration organization. Once you're into your dashboard for your account, click on Data Sources. This is where you're storing all of your quantitative data. In this video, I'm assuming you've already set up the data source where you want to input data into. And so we're going to click into that setup data source right now. If you still need to set it up, we need to backtrack and talk about how to do that in a separate video. So let's click on the name in order to get into the data source. You might have multiple data sources within your dashboard. That's totally normal and totally fine. And the steps that we're walking through right now, you can replicate for each of your data sources. The fundamentals are the same. Ultimately, you're going to be inputting your data samples in as a batch or one by one. But before we start actually putting in those inputs, let's review the key components that you'll need here in order to get the data where it needs to be. First, let's look at stations. So we are making an assumption here that we're dealing with continuous monitoring stations, which are specific sites that you are returning to over time to continue to monitor. As you can see here, this demonstration site has this demonstrations account has 3 stations. And each one has a unique ID. This ID is critical to assigning data to that station. So make sure that you have a list of what your IDs are handy, or return back to this when it's time to start inputting your data if you choose to use the import feature. Next, scroll down and take a look at the parameters. Your parameters list includes a column called column name. And whatever you have listed here is exactly how you need to structure the column name in your spreadsheet as well. So for instance, the pH has a capital H. That's important that you duplicate that with that capitalization in the template. If you don't replace or replicate the column names in your template, the system won't recognize them as the same and won't map that data point to that parameter. Okay, so these are kind of the 2 main parts, right? The stations and the parameters. The next component is actually importing this data. So let's navigate down to imports. And here, if you have imported any data to date, you'll be able to see that list here. Otherwise, let's click on the plus sign. Now, this is what you will do if you are going to import a batch of existing data. So perhaps you've been monitoring all season, your volunteers have been sharing their paper sheets with you, and someone on staff has been inputting into a spreadsheet. You now have that spreadsheet ready to go, and you want to just upload it into Water Reporter. That's what you're going to do through this imports field. We have a handy download button so that you can download the actual template and make sure that you are able to map everything in the Water Reporter format before you start uploading. As you can see here, the system automatically opened the template for me, and you can see the column headers already have that specificity for you for what you're going to upload into the system. So if you choose to upload your data, you can start to input it in the information that you need to including that collection date in any of those sample readings here. Now, the really great thing about Water Reporter is in a batch import, you can import a whole season's worth of data in one file. So you're not limited to one reading per import or one station. You can do everything at once. You just need to pre-populate it. It's also important to note that the importer, it's pretty inflexible in a lot of ways. For instance, and this is on purpose, right? Because we want to make sure that you are inputting data that is usable and can be analyzed and can be read by the Water Reporter platform as well as other systems if needed. So you cannot input any non-quantitative information into any of these parameters. You can only input, numbers. If you want to add a column called notes or anything else that you're collecting, you can add that in here as separate columns, and it will store in the system, but it won't be available for analysis. So I've gone ahead and populated a separate import template just to make sure that we have it all squared away. And I will show you what that looks like now, possibly. Let's see, what do we have here to show you? So if we go over to my demo template here, you can see I've added my station IDs, I've added a collection date, and I've populated each of the parameters with a quantitative value. I've saved this as a CSV file, and now I can, within this importer section, click Browse, find that file, open it, and tap Upload. The system's going to tell you if it's successfully processed the data, and then navigate you over to our samples page where all of the information that you just imported will appear. And if you need to, you can sort through the stations or the parameters, the collection dates, to do a spot check or to review any of your data. This works for really recent data, or if you're backfilling with some historical data, you can use that same form and the same process to enter in as much data as you need to. Now, some people don't need or have a template or a batch of information handy. They just want to sit down and enter in their data one reading at a time. And you can do that too. And the way that you do that as an administrator is going to look quite similar to how someone would do it in the field. The difference being that your samples will be automatically verified. So I think you can probably see where I'm going with this. From this samples page here, rather than import, you're going to be on the samples page to enter in one specific sample, and you'll click that plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. The system's going to load you a blank form that includes all of the parameters that have been included in your data source. And you can enter in any information that you want here. And I'm just typing these in. Optional means that you can skip that field. If it says required, you have to have an entry into it. And so the stations here, you'll notice, are referred to by their station name rather than that station ID. So if you don't have those IDs handy, that's fine in this instance. And so then you can just add in whatever information you have handy and click save. And the system will tell you that the sample has been saved. It's important to note that the collection date is generated as a default for the day that you are inputting this. But, in case you're inputting old data, sample by sample, you can change this as well to a date in the past. But only put in the year once. And then you can click save. You'll also notice here that this sample has not yet been verified. So let's take a look at what that means. We're going to go over to that summary page, and you can see that all of my samples are sitting here waiting to be verified. So we're going to click in, and we're going to you're going to change the certification over to verified. Now, the only people that are able to do this are owners of the data source. So because I am not an owner of this one, I do not have this ability to change this to verified. Until a sample is verified, it's going to linger on the summary page. Again, this is a resource that we put into Water Reporter in order to support your needs. And give you an added level of quality assurance for your data. So those are the two straightforward ways to enter in data into your data source. If you run into any issues, I highly recommend first checking to make sure that you have used the correct parameter column headers and the correct station IDs. Then if you are still running into errors, double check that you only have quantitative or numbers within the parameter fields. And if you're still running into problems, feel free to reach out via support@waterreporter.org, and we will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. It's always helpful for you to include the template that you used or the file that you used to try to import, so that we can take a look and try to see what it might be causing a problem for you. And with that, thank you for using Water Reporter to store your data and hopefully analyze and visualize it as well. We look forward to seeing you import stuff into here.